Hi, this is Craig Stocks here at Utah Desert Remote Observatories. You can find us online at utahdesertremote.com. Today's video is a little bit different. I had a problem recently where the camera I was using for a particular target died partway through the process, so I had to get a replacement camera and finish up the target. So what we're going to look at today is how to set up WBPP in PixInsight to process one target captured with two different cameras. So here's a little bit of the backstory. I was working on this target for an hourly rental customer, and partway through several nights of collecting the data, the camera that I was using, it's an ASI 6200 monochrome camera, started going bad on me. At first it was a couple frames were bad, then the next night more were bad, the next night about half or three quarters. So eventually it became unusable. And over several nights I was keeping the good data but throwing out more and more each night. Eventually I got a replacement camera. I've since sent this one off to be repaired, but that left me with the data comprising multiple nights but actually two different cameras. So when I got the new camera, the first thing I did was shoot dark and bias frames, so I have those for the library. But now I want to set up WBPP to process all of the data across all of the nights, but use the calibration frames appropriately so that the dark frames are matched to the camera that it was taken with. The flats are universal, so they can be used with either camera. So let's look at how I set that up. And if you're familiar with WBPP, and let's just open that up to start with, and it'll still be configured the way I configured it when I ran through the process to make sure it works. So starting out, we'll see kind of the end result of laying it out. But what we're going to do, we're going to key off of, let me move me out of the way here. We're going to use this grouping keywords as a way to tell WBPP what calibration files go with what night's data. And so to do that, the keyword grouping is really very powerful. It can pick out keywords that are within the file name. It can also pick out keywords that are in the file path. So if we organize our data into folders, and one folder's camera 1 and one folder's camera 2, and we put the appropriate lights and calibration frames in each folder, then we have everything kind of organized for WBPP to make sense out of it. So the way I do that, and let me pull up, let's go to my D drive where I have the data stored. And starting out, it's all in one file where we have multiple nights from July 7th through July 18th, which was last night. The ones from the 16th, 17th, and 18th were captured with the new camera, and the ones from the 14th and before were with the previous camera. So my approach is I set up another folder called Mix and Match, and within that folder I've created three folders. I've got one for the flats because those are universal. I've got one for camera 1 and one for camera 2. In the camera 1 folder I have the nights that I captured the data with the camera number 1. And then in this folder, the Takahashi Mono, this is the master dark and the master bias frames that go with the old camera. And then in camera 2 folder, as you might guess, I have all the data from those nights. And then I have a Takahashi Mono 2, so this is the new camera. And these are the dark and bias frames that go with the new camera. And then obviously in the flats folder, I have the flats that were captured with this telescope and these filters. And I'm really fortunate. This system is very symmetrical, so my flats don't have to specifically match the camera rotation angle. So I can pretty freely mix and match the flats to different position angles of the camera. So to load all this into WBPP, we have to do a couple things. And to start with, let me just reset this using the settings from the previous file and clear all the file lists. Now that we have WBPP cleared out, because we have everything organized in a single folder, I have this Tulip Mix and Match folder, and that has within it all of the flats, lights, and so forth, and calibration frames. We can use the load directory feature of WBPP, and I merely have to navigate to that folder, select the Tulip Mix and Match, and select folder, and it will go through and pick out all of the calibration frames, the lights, the darks, the flats, the biases, and based on file names and metadata, so forth, it will load everything in the appropriate spot. And we can see, if we look at the calibration tab, that everything is green checked, but we want to match certain dark frames with certain light frames. And to do that, we're going to use the grouping keyword. And if you recall, we have that organized in camera 1 and camera 2. So I can put in a grouping keyword of camera. And by default, the check mark is under the pre-processor as opposed to post-processor. Pre-processing is calibration, post-processing is integration. And in this case, it's just the calibration that we want to be unique by camera. And now if we look at the details, you can see under the darks, here we have a master dark with camera 1. Expand this so we can, and a master dark with camera 2, and so forth. If we look down here at the lights, here's an oxygen and another oxygen, and if we scroll over, we can see that these are with camera 1 and camera 2. And if I choose the camera 1 oxygen, we can see that it's choosing the camera 1 corresponding dark file. And if I click on 2, if you watch up here, you'll see that when I click on camera 2, this moves to camera 2. So it's matching up the dark frames. It's not using the bias frames, but if we were using the bias frames, it would match those up also from camera 1 and camera 2. So when it goes through the calibration, they're calibrated appropriately. The flats are universal, so those aren't segregated by camera. So it's using the same flat frames regardless of whether it's camera 1 or camera 2, which is what I asked it to do. So now it's just a matter of setting an output directory for the Tulip Mix and Match. And when I run this, you can see that it's calibrating camera 1 and camera 2. So once that's done, and I've already run this, so I don't need to run it again. If we look at the output, if we look at file, let's see, swap files, here's Tulip Mix and Match, here's our masters. And so here we have red, green, and blue, hydrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. And it's the oxygen and sulfur that were shot with the second camera. There's just one master file, one master light for each one of those, but it contains the information from both the camera 1 and camera 2 blended together and all integrated together as it should be. And then at this point, it's just a matter of going through the standard processing ritual. Whatever you would normally do with an SHO image, you would process it just the same here. So I hope you found this useful. That keyword tool within WPP is very powerful. Obviously, you can use it with mosaics, where you might segregate by pane. Here we're segregating by camera. I've also used it to segregate by date, to look at, for instance, a comet moving across different days. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it. Just use your imagination and creativity. So if you have any questions, drop those in the comments below. And as always, I hope you have a great day today and an even better night tonight under a clear, dark sky. Thanks.